Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to the residents of the Metro, the beautiful Nelson Mandela Bay, and also good morning to the valuable readers of the Herald newspaper and the people that are viewing this live webinar now, and to those that will be joining as we proceed. I welcome them in advance. This is a very, very important webinar discussion. We know as Nelson Mandela Metro that we are currently faced with a double disaster, if I can put it that way, to an extent that we can push it to be a triple disaster, if there's a term as such, because we're faced currently with COVID-19 that we have been called an epicenter of the continent. And now, as we were faced with the water disaster, trying to get all the tricks in the book and then the planning, short term, medium term, long term, cooperations, partnerships, and then also maybe going all out to learn a benchmark in other areas that have done it. In March this year, COVID-19 hit us. So we were left with a double disaster that resulted in the third disaster of jobs that are affected, business that is seriously affected by this. And we thought that it's important to converge in this fashion where we have the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber, uSisi uNomkhita Mona, and we also have a, a senior official from the Department of Water and Sanitation, because this area of water is an area that is governed at national level. We might be a provider of water as the city, but we get our direction, we get our regulatory framework from the national sphere of government. Mr. Lucas is with us to give us an indication of where we are at that level and then the plans going forward. And we also, in this discussion, have us as the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality Communications facilitating this discussion. This is the discussion that has always been on the cards from us as Nelson Mandela Bay and our Department of Water Services, led by Mr. Barry Martin, our Senior Director for Water Services, who's also with us now. This has always been a discussion coming, but with the double disaster that we're currently facing and the jobs that we are losing every day and the business that has been affected severely, we thought we cannot postpone it any further as the city. We need to have this discussion and also take the residents of the metro and then South Africa at large in confidence, so that they must know what are the plans in place, short term, medium term, and long term, and the partnerships that we have with other spheres of government, and the cooperation that we have also with a big business in Nelson Mandela Metro. In actual fact, all business, big or small, in Nelson Mandela Metro, in this challenge that we're facing of the water crisis. We are not seeing rain. If we do get rain, it does not make that much difference in our catchment areas. We are below 30% as we speak. One would ask a question. We've been receiving quite a lot of rain lately, but if it does not make a difference in our catchment areas, there isn't much that we can do about that one. It just goes to the sea. So we will be discussing a number of areas, uh, reflections from us as the municipality, because the question that I'm sure will come out from our readers and our viewers is, what are you doing, Nelson Mandela Bay? What are you doing? What are your plans? We see water leaks. We see people connecting water illegally. We see vandalism of water infrastructure, left, right, and center. What are you doing? What are the plans? And in some instances, residents are not even aware, some of them, what role can they play to save the scarce resource that we have, the little that we have. They do not know their role. So Mr. Martin will come and reflect on those areas, and Mr. Lucas as well, and Miss Mona as well will reflect, because a partnership with our residents is a winning formula in all the discussions that we'll be having here. So those few remarks is just to welcome you, more especially the viewers and the readers of the Herald. It's just to welcome you into this webinar. It's not going to be the last, definitely, and to also welcome our panelists as I've introduced them. Mr. Martin, my colleague from Water Services, Ms. Mona from the Nelson Mandela Business Chamber, and Mr. Lucas from the Department of Water and Sanitation. And apparently, not apparently, in actual fact, it also has a human settlements flavor in it now. It has been changed a number of times, but the focus area for today, I guess, it's water services that we'll be dealing with. So welcome, and also thank you to our colleagues at the back end that are connecting us to make this webinar a success. Thank you very much, colleagues. I won't delay, colleagues. We do not have that much time, and I want us to save as much time in this session to reflect on the questions, comments that the residents and the readers are having. They've started to throw in some questions already. You know, Barry, you would know the usual questions that they might be throwing already. Let me, our line of march will be like this. We'll start with Water and Sanitation Senior Director Barry Martin, because any discussion that we might have, we will need to reflect as the municipality, the work that we're doing and the interventions that we've done and what can be expected from the public. And then we'll allow Mr. Lucas to come in as the national sphere that is responsible for this area, and then allow Ms. Mona to come in and reflect on behalf of business in Nelson Mandela Metro, and probably on behalf of business in the province, because we seem to be having this problem of drought across the city. I'm sure in their discussions at provincial level as business chambers, they do reflect on that. So without delay, let me give over to you, Mr. Martin, to come in, tell us, what is Nelson Mandela Bay doing about the water crisis that we're currently facing, that is affecting everyone, including business, including the much needed jobs that we want to create as the city. Over to you, Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Barry Martin. I'm the Senior Director for Water and Sanitation in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Mr. Mniki, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for colleagues from the media as well as Business Chamber, and Mr. Lucas from the Provincial Office for sharing information. And obviously information is key during this critical times. So I'll be sharing some information on a presentation that I've prepared in order for us to see the way, indicate the work that the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro has been doing in this regard. So I will start by saying the topic is Let's Talk Water in the Bay. And just to set the scene, I haven't gone much, I just focused on the month of November. And we can see how the dams have, on the average dam levels on the 2nd of November was 22.63. It declined slightly since then, and then came up also a bit. And for the whole month to about 6 weeks, we've been stabilizing in this area. But in July, at the start of the water year, it was 18.35%. And why I mention that date is because that's the date at which stock is taken for what kind of water restrictions we looking ahead for the new year, what we call the water year ahead. Ironically, it's the same as our financial year, but it also indicates to us how prudent we must be with our water resources going forward. And since then, our dam levels has dropped to 16.93%. And when you look at our water year and the kind of restrictions ahead, the National Department of Water and Sanitation do analysis to anticipate where our dam levels will be through the coming 12 months, and then make representations in suggested restrictions, and these restrictions are also gazetted. And we, in terms of our bylaw, also then impose water restrictions so that we know that we must be prudent with the water. But what the concern that we have is that our dam levels are stabilizing around this period. But what we are particularly concerned of now, although there's been an increase in the dam levels since August, our concern is that from now until March, we will experience of the hottest period during the year and of the driest periods as well. And therefore, the outlook going ahead is that our dam levels potential will drop even further. This is the historic water rainfall that we have at the Churchill Dam over the last 20 years. And when I refer to the hot periods, I'd like to point out in December 2016, where the dark bars indicate the actual rainfall and the hollow ones, the 20-year average. And for December 2016, December 2017, December 2018, 2019, and almost now 2020, it looks like our rainfall for the last almost 5 years now has been below average. And that is exactly the reason why we're in this water shortage situation, and why we should be more responsible of using our water resources. This is how we tracked over a slightly shorter period. If colleagues and public can remember that in August, September 2018, we had quite a lot of rain that fell in the catchment areas, and the dam levels went from about 17, 18% right up to about 55%, 54%. However, since then, there's been a consistent decline. And although at the end of the graph here on the blue line here, our dam levels is 22%, a hotter period going forward rather predicts a decline in the dam levels as opposed to an increase. And I also indicated there in July of this year, when we introduced restriction level 8, and also our reinforcing our part B of our water tariffs. So what does this mean? We have water supply from various areas from east and west and north from the Garib Dam as well. But in terms of the available water and the available water as of July this year, because of the levels on the Koga and the Luri Dam, the water restriction for domestics is 70% there. On the Churchill Impofu system, there's a 50% water restrictions there. And the volume that I've reflected there is the actual volume that's available from those resources. The Groendal Dam is at a 20% level restriction. There's no restriction on the water from Nooitgedag, and there's no restriction from the water on the springs or the older dams. But with that restrictions in place, we have only 267 megaliters of water per day available, means we have an average of 30% water restrictions across the metropolitan space. But what the next slide depicts is we've been consistently using more, on average, 190 megaliters of water per day. And this is of great concern, which means that we've been using up to more than 40 megaliters per day, more than what we can supply. And that is a direct result of why certain parts of the metropolitan area has run without water. And of what great concern is here is the fact that we are only supposed to take 52 megaliters of water per day out of the Churchill and Impofu dams, but we are currently taking almost 90, which means there's where that 40 megs per day deficit comes from. And that means all of the users of water from the Churchill pipeline system all the way from Summerstrand Central right into New Brighton are affected by that restriction. And there's only a limited amount available from the Lurikoga system at 18 megs per day, which means anything more that we need there, we need to get from Nooit Gedacht. Also bearing in mind that Kwanabushle consumes about 12 megs per day on average. So the whole western areas, we have to get water from Nooit Gedacht. So it just depicts how constrained or how stressed actually our water supply system is. If anything goes wrong, a power outage, a broken pipe, a mechanical failure or anything, we then have a water shortage or an intermittent water supply. We are in constant contact with the South African Weather Services, looking at their predictions ahead. It has been really reasonably accurate from their side. And what these graphs, maps indicate is that that block over there, which is not colored up there, depicts that there's no clear indication of good rains for the next 3 to 4 months, right up to March next year. That means we can expect rain or we can expect no rain. And so that's what this really means. Ideally, we would like to have that all colored in green, dark green, in fact, meaning that there's a good probability of rain. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and therefore the need to use water very sparingly at all times. So the big question normally is, what does the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro actually do about dealing with its water resources? And top of the pile is dealing with our response to water leakages. We've put specific measures in place since June this year. We fixed more than 16,000 water leaks already. We have now, after that, we're interrogating our databases now and checking out various outstanding complaints so we can see that there are nothing left on the table. And we got our internal staff maintenance teams with our external contractors dealing with all of these outstanding complaints. And as you can appreciate, our 4,800 kilometers of water infrastructure is old and fatigue, and therefore the risk of leaks is also there, and therefore a water leak that comes up from time to time is a real thing, and therefore it's a moving target. We've also identified the water wastage at schools. This is a historic area that we've always been in discussion with the Department of Education and Public Works, but this is compounded with the vandalism at schools, and we've estimated that between 10 and 15% of our average daily water usage is actually wasted at schools. And in our discussions with the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber, who's come on board, and we're busy dealing with plans and interrogating and looking at specific schools where there are huge needs for us then to involve the business chamber to assist the relevant departments in actually fixing the schools. And what must be noticed here, the repairs on the inside of the school is the responsibility of the Department of Education and Public Works from their side. But because we are concerned about the water wastage, we are facilitating this discussion and see how we can bring all parties together to bring a better solution to this matter at the end of the day. In terms of pressure management is one of the elements of our water conservation, water demand management plans of the municipality. This is a methodology that actually reduces the pressure in the pipelines where there's excessive pipe pressures as well during normal operations. But even at night, we also reduce it even further so that we can actually reduce the fatigue on the pipes as well. And by that also reduce the risk of bursts. But if there's a leak, it also reduces the rate of leak and then the subsequent water wastage. We've got 70 installations of the metro in the metro across this metropolitan space. In the short term, for the next 2-3 months, we've planned to install a further 6 installations, and we monitor the situations of where we feel there's more pressure management, and we then focus on those as well. And then unfortunately, we find customers who are still using water excessively. We've installed disk restrictors, which just reduces the pressure to private households. So we've installed about 380 of them throughout the metro so far. But one of the things that we've done on a bigger scale is just short of 20,000 flow water restrictors we've installed. They are operating, and they limit the use of water of customers who use too much water on a daily basis. We are rolling this out even further to customers who are paying for their water, but are using in excess of 50 kiloliters of water per month. There are customers that use in excess of 50 and 100 as well. And potentially, this is about, with a thumb suck, probably about 5% of all the water connections in the metropolitan area. And this is the next target area where we'll be going in and actually restricting at the source at the household, the amount of water that they use. And yes, it's not a case of whether you can pay for your water or not. It's a case of using your water responsibly. Then other measures that are in place is that at our Impofu Dam, the water is so low, we can't extract the water from the dam there at the present moment through the permanent infrastructure. So there's a floating barge that's operational to bring that water up out of the dam level for it to be used. We've installed a temporary treatment facility at Grassreach, which is operational. And with that, and the water from Nooit Gedacht, together we are operating in the region of about 150 to 160 megaliters of water per day from that area, and bringing it through a system of about 100 kilometers of pipeline to the western part of the metro and through the back door of KwaNobuhle as well, to give them also access to that water. Then we are busy getting approvals for our boreholes. All the plans are in place. There's a meeting today, in fact, that we just need some additional approvals. Once that committee has approved this, we will be then rolling out these plans and then bringing 15 megaliters per day of borehole water on stream by June next year. And then our conservation campaign, which this discussion today is part of that, to increase the awareness, to be water wise, but also to see that we use 50 liters per person per day. But it might sound little, but if we add up the number of households and the newspaper adverts that's placed on what different particular activities within your household you use water for, you will actually find that there's enough water for an average household of about 5 to actually get away with about 15 kiloliters of water per month. And then we hope we won't get there. We'll have to go for emergency water supply through tankering and rainwater tanks if the system fails, if we do not get water. But we're not only looking at the short term, we're also planning for the long term. Nooit Gedacht is one of those long-term projects has been running for more than 10 years already. We are finally in the final phase of that now. That'll be completed by June next year, July next year. The Kugekop water treatment works has also been on the plan cards for a couple of years. That has also come to final construction now. And then there's seawater desalination plant that is being planned with the assistance of the Kuga Development Corporation. And in summary, over the next 2 years, we will augment our water supply for the metropolitan customers, both personal and domestic, in the region of 85 megaliters per day. And that is the breakdown of those different areas. And I can also say that we have more than 450 megaliters per day of water treatment capacity. So to treat the water is not the problem, is to get the water, either the drop of water in the dam to actually use it. Also, just to note that this 85 megs per day excludes further desal plant development around the Schoenmakerskop area that is also will be planned for our medium to long term going forward. This is just an indication of our media campaign. You might have seen some of the adverts that has been running. And we just hope we don't need to go one day to go queue at a tank like this for water in future. Then just some of the challenges that we sit with or and interventions. Our water restriction notice number 8 has been publicized. It's in the customers have received it in their municipal accounts. It's on the municipal website as well. And this is also supported by our water bylaws, and that is also available on the NMBM website. Then obviously our drive to reduce our water consumption at all costs, and both a dual responsibility between the customer using water sparingly, but us as the municipality also putting interventions in place to actually save water through fixing water leaks, reducing pressure and the like. Then also from a water saving point of view, we request that responsible citizenship. We also need to look at the illegal selling of boreholes. A borehole at your private household is for personal use. You might have excess of available water there, but you cannot sell it, because the more water you abstract from the borehole, you are complicating the use of that borehole and compromising it, in fact, because the intention of that borehole was not to supply multiple other customers with water, but only for you as an individual household. And this compromised the whole borehole groundwater system in future as well. Then we also encourage our customers to log all water-related complaints to 0800 20 50 50. I know sometimes you can't get through because of telephone number overloads. We encourage customers then to use our email address at waterleaks@mandelametro.gov.za, but also there's a municipal app where you can tap on there and report an incident there. Just select the icon there, and then you can log your complaint there. You can take a picture as well as they'll also give you a reference number there as well. And then that might be quite easy, acceptable a way of communicating. I know it's also been very topical recently, a question about the water quality of the NMBM. I can state that the water is safe to drink. Our bacteria levels in the water is sufficient, low, and we've got a good compliance. The far right-hand corner indicates that our bacteria levels at green, meaning it falls in the compliance level. In the month of March this year, there was a slight, the compliance was only 97% instead of above the 98%. And we're running on average about 98.8% in that vicinity. From a chemical point of view, we do comply chemically on the analysis that is being presented this way, but we can confirm there has been some chemical elements that has been non-compliant in terms of color and turbidity, and even some on the THMs. And this can also relate to over the last 2-3 years with low dam levels also having an influence of that. And then when you have a bit of rainfall in that, it also changes the mix of the water, and we have to adjust our water quality and treatment process accordingly. But we all strive to actually see that all our customers, our water is safe to drink. The water is safely disinfected, and therefore the microbiological content in terms of killing all microorganisms that might be present in the treatment process is disinfected with chlorine, and therefore the water is safe to drink, while we also actively explore methods to ensure that we are also chemically compliant with all the chemical composition of the water. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will stop sharing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much. And also thank you for your clarity at the end of this issue of water quality of Nelson Mandela Metro. There's been some disturbing messages going all around on social media. People saying quite a lot about the quality of our water, to an extent of even saying the water causes COVID-19, and those were disturbing fake news, and they've caused a lot of confusion, amongst the residents of the metro. Thank you for clarifying that. We'll probably be clarifying it more in the next coming week because we need that message to go to every corner, to every citizen of the metro to understand that our water is safe. And there's been a number of questions, Barry. I must say that as you were speaking, they were coming up, but as you were speaking again, proceeding with your presentation, you were responding to them as if you knew the questions that were coming. Maybe it talks to the comprehensiveness of your presentation. You know, a number of questions that I see here that I'll just be picking up and reading towards the end. You have already responded to. Let's come to you, Mr. Andrew Lucas. I'm waiting in anticipation to hear you speak as the regulatory department of this very, very scarce resource in South Africa. You know, so tell us what's your take as the national department and the regulations that have to do with this subject, and maybe touch also on developments that have already happened between Nelson Mandela Metro and the national department in terms of the interventions that have already been made. We've seen a high-powered delegation recently coming to the city. There's some interventions that were announced. And yeah, talk to us. Let me not lead you. Talk to us, the readers and the listeners. All ears. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, and good afternoon, listeners and colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity of just sharing with you. Yes, my name's Andrew Lucas, and I represent the Department of Water and Sanitation. We're a national department, and we are, in theory, the guardian of our water resources. My line function is water regulation, but I'm going to be talking just on the support that is given in this issue with Nelson Mandela Metro. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to load a slide, a presentation that I briefly prepared. And hopefully it'll just help to understand the role that we do play. I'm hoping it's coming through now. Chairperson, I'm just briefly talking about the extent of the drought, and it is very worrying. Across our country, we've had very severe drought over the last 5 years, and Eastern Cape has had almost 4 years of that drought, interspersed with one period of moderate rainfall. I also want to talk very briefly about the drought funding projects and then the planning support that is given by our department. And just to indicate the type of risk that we're sitting with, this is a specific precipitation index, and it's an indicator of the level of rainfall in the drought that we're sitting with. And we can see that mostly the western part of our province, although the whole of the Eastern Cape is affected through the drought. And we really need to be diligent in how we are managing this resource and also looking after the infrastructure that ensures it. I'm talking briefly about our funding, and ordinarily the Department of Water and Sanitation doesn't usually fund projects within the Metro, as the Metro have direct access to National Treasury and are far stronger than some of our smaller municipalities. So most of our funding ends up going to the priority districts where water and sanitation backlogs are in existence. However, we did see fit that we fund the phase 3 of the Nooit Gedacht Kuche low-level scheme, because it was seen as a critical component in balancing the water needs of the city of Port Elizabeth. But I've also mentioned the ALGOA system is shared by other municipalities. And so I'm just mentioning too that we've been funding Coca municipality, also on groundwater development for drought relief and also for water conservation and demand management. The amount of the funds are mentioned there. And that helps to find alternative sources, and that Coca is not as dependent on the ALGOA system as what they would be if they didn't have those interventions in place. Also, we have committed additional rainwater tanks. Initially, there were COVID tanks that have already been placed in the community, but there's a further 100 tanks that has been committed by a recent visit, and also 10 tankers that will be used for a limited period to ensure that these tanks can remain full of water and can be an additional source during this drought period should they be needed. Now, what I want to just remind is that we do plan for our water resources, and we do plan for droughts because we know droughts do come into play. I'm talking briefly about the different planning support that is given. The Algoa Systems Reconciliation Strategy looks at what future growth we're likely to see and what future water schemes we need to put in place to ensure that the Nelson Mandela city and the municipalities around it will be safe for water security going ahead. And then also we do water resource planning systems within, as Barry mentioned, annual allocations, and we do annual model runs to ensure that the allocations can be sustainable for the year. And we do monitor those, as Barry has mentioned. Now, if we stick to the allocations that have been made, we can be assured that there will be enough water to go around. But as Barry has indicated, sometimes we battle to stay within those allocations, and that's when we do have trouble. But what I briefly want to talk about the Algoa System Reconciliation Strategy. And it was through that strategy that the Noitgedacht scheme, low-level scheme, was initiated, and also the groundwater developments that Barry has referred to. And it also looks at future possible options that can be investigated going forward. Barry has shown this slide, and so I'm not going to talk to it, but it does show that many of the sources are from outside of Nelson Mandela Metro itself. But particularly, I want to talk about the water that comes from the Orange River, right from Gariep Dam through the canal and tunnels down into the Fish River, across into the Sundays River, and that's how it ends up at Noitgedacht. This is some of the support that is given to ensure that we have adequate sources. And the fact that the two sources, the local dams and this water from Orange River, which is 600 kilometers away, can ensure that there's usually a balance between the two sources, that even if one area is battling with the drought, like we see, the Orange River is not under restriction, so we are not challenged on having to skimp on that side of water. This Algoa system looks at our water demand and who needs water, and then we plan forward. And the interventions going forward looks at improving the water conservation and demand management. If we can achieve a high water conservation, we are saving that precious water, and we will stretch our water sufficiently until the next season comes. The Noitgedacht low-level scheme, we committed to finishing it early next year. And then we need to look at other sources of water, such as effluent recycling, and also groundwater sources, as has been done. And the use of water in Lower Sundays River, which might also need to be slightly desalinated. And then the raising of Koger Dam or the Gurnakop Dam would be the further development of surface water schemes going forward. This is just some graphs of showing how we model the different interventions that we need to go forward, and we take the water conservation into account as well. I'm not going to spend time on it because I am concerned about time, but the scenario conclusions that we have is the current shortages we are experiencing is definitely caused by drought, and we need to make sure that we do manage for these, because we know droughts come through on a regular basis. But effective water conservation and demand management, leak control that Barry has spoken about, is so important to ensure that we do stretch our water resources. The early completion of the Noitgedacht Phase 3, and then any planning intervention. We find that these are taking their time to get implemented for various reasons, but we really need to remove those stumbling blocks and ensure that the interventions get planned and get implemented timeously. And the groundwater schemes and the desalination schemes that are being planned are very critical in balancing the water going forward. Just lastly, our drought management support. We've mentioned that we run hydraulic models, and we do Algoa system drought monitoring meetings each month. And we also run the drought war rooms where the municipal representatives of all of our municipalities are meeting and being able to raise the issues they are having and ensure that we receive attention. We've also got WhatsApp groups that ensure very prompt complaints can be shared and they can receive attention very rapidly, and then we can ensure that there's feedback given as well. And also the department serves on the Joint Operations Committee of Nelson Mandela Metro and other municipalities as well. In our monthly monitoring committee, we can see that we monitor and track our water, And I've particularly shown these two graphs. The one on the left-hand side is the Coga subsystem, and we can see that there's good compliance. The black line is the allocation, and the red line is the severely restricted allocation for this year. But we can see there's good compliance to that, and we appreciate the way the municipality is managing that one. However, we have heard Barry say that the Kroma system is battling, and you can see the blue line there shows that we are not complying with the restricted amount. And in fact, we are almost halfway through the allocation, which is meant for the whole year. And so we are very worried about this particular one. And if we're not able to reduce the abstraction from the scheme, it could cause the scheme to fail prematurely. But anyway, we are monitoring it and we are managing it, and we are ensuring that it receives attention. And then just our drought war room meetings I've mentioned, and the WhatsApp group I've already spoken to. So that's it, Chairperson. There's really no life without water, but we need to really value it. We need to look after it, and we need to bring our consumption down to stay within the allocation. And then we will ensure that there is enough water to last for the year, and will see us through into the next wet season. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Thank you very much. It makes me be a little bit at ease now that the presentations, more especially the fact that they talk to each other. You know, you get worried sometimes because as government, we are always accused of working in corners, silos, if I can use that word. It makes me a bit comfortable to see that the presentations are talking to each other. But let me not waste time. Then let me zoom in to the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Business Chamber, because that's another crux of the matter. That's another pillar three of the discussions. We really need to get it from that pillar to understand the impact of what we are facing. Ms. Mona, let me give over to you without delay.
Thank you, Mr. Mniki. Good afternoon. My name is Nomkita Mona. I'm the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber. For some reason.
Yes, you can proceed. We
yes,
can see your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so the reason that we participating in this is that the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber operates under what we call the quadruple helix model of collaboration. And one of the partners we collaborate with is the Metro themselves, because they are government, but we also collaborate with academia as well as civil society. So the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan predicts that there will be a deficit of between 2.7 to 3.8 million megaliters per annum by the year 2030. And this is if we continue to use water at the current levels. Now, this deficit is equivalent to 17% of available surface and groundwater resources. But if you really want to simplify it, it is 26 times or more than 26 times the amount of water that the Nelson Mandela Bay itself treats every year. So you can see that this deficit is actually very big. And that water security for us is one of the most critical issues that affects both livelihoods, the cost of doing business, but also just the country in general and the economy. And as a country, we are a water scarce country, and we've been facing a crisis in particular with regard to drought as a country, but also as a country in terms of our water infrastructure maintenance and investment in water infrastructure. It has not been going at the level that we require. We all know that our systems are old, they've been there for a long time, so the country does need to start investing in infrastructure. Now, if you look at the economy in general, some of you will remember what happened in Cape Town. When Cape Town was faced with severe drought, they started using terms like day zero, etc. And that affected the economy in a very bad way because firstly, investors were thinking, well, why would I need to go and invest in a place where there was a water issue? But also tourists in that year, they've actually calculated how much tourism revenue they lost just because of the kind of words they used. So we do not want to say that people mustn't tell the truth. If this city gets to that level, yes, we can talk about that. But before we get there, I think we must run away from using words for the sake of using them. But also here in Nelson Mandela Bay as well, there would be financial and local business damage if we do not have water. And it's important as well that with the occupational health, safety, risks, etc. And I mean, we all know, Mr. Mniki mentioned it in the beginning, the whole issue around COVID-19 hitting us badly. There is a direct correlation between pandemics and water. So it's important that we always do have some water. So if you look at our own value proposition as the city, we believe that it remains fragile, even though we have a lot to offer, but it does need to be looked after. This slide is really just to show what we've done from the business chamber point of view, where we partnered with the GIZ and a program called the Natures of the GIZ. We also partnered with Santam and COCTA as well. And now we've also roped in the Department of Water Affairs in the country, but also the Metro. So out of this project, we have a number of approved partnership outcomes. The GIZ is funding these programs that we're doing. We're doing most of them with the Metro, but we also believe in partnerships and making the circle bigger in terms of saying there are other partners who would be able to help us, and therefore we've managed to get that going. So this is a program that we started last year already, and we are beginning to see some really good outcomes from it. Some of the activities that we've done as part of that, I just want to highlight that we've identified, I heard that Barry spoke about the water project within schools. We are partnering with the Metro on that. We're using this particular program, but also we are working in the Barkens River Valley with the forum there. We are making sure that we want to make sure that we restore the area hectare by hectare. So there's some money that we managed to get from the GIZ, which we have now gone out to tender to get some kind of a business plan, but we're doing this with the Metro as well. So we are working with other partners in the region, but the one thing I want to highlight on this slide is that we've had an economic study done by the University of Toulouse in France. This study was at no cost to the Metro. It was also because of our partnership with the GIZ, and we have since given the study over to the Metro to Barry's office. And so for us, those are the things that we're bringing to the table. I'll talk a little bit more about this study because it was very important to us in terms of what came out of it, because what we wanted to check was the effect of water or lack thereof on the economy. And the study really showed us that that effect and that impact, there is definitely a direct correlation. And the results did inform the decision-making that we want to do going forward. But also what the model revealed is that the most promising scenario was to invest in further saving water, which is what has been mentioned by both my co-panelists today. So yes, there are other ways of trying to get water, but here's the study. If you remember anything from my project or my presentation today, remember this slide. So we tested a number, or the model that we used with the Toulouse University, tested a number of scenarios, but the scenario that is going to pay us more is the one that says, if you increase water usage or water saving by 20% year on year until the year 2030, that's going to be the most effective one. So we do need to start talking to our own communities together with businesses as well and industry to focus a lot on saving water. I am from PE, I grew up here, I was born here, and I know that all we used to do was to open a tap and water comes. So we didn't really have a sense of the fact that this is a finite resource and it would end. So I do believe that this education that we're talking about does need to go from school children all the way up to adults and businesses in terms of how it is that we can use water much more sparingly. So this for me is one of the most important slides because this is scientific. There was a model that was created by that university, and it showed that if we focus on saving water over and above the other ways and means of getting water, we would be okay. Now, if you just look at the fact that the trend has been going down, and the fact that this is now a usage slide. So if we can continue to get the trend going down, we should be on the right track. The important thing is to use less water than we use currently. Now, we have a task team at the Business Chamber that looks particularly on infrastructure and water. Within the infrastructure task team, there's a water subgroup. Now, what we're focusing on is to raise our awareness, and we also need to understand the current challenges that are facing the city. And that has led to what we spoke about already in terms of schools, in terms of technologies that we can use, etc. But we also need to make sure that we look at whatever strategies we can use to address our water shortages, but also immediately so that we don't have to wait too long to get that going. So we continue to lobby. We continue to make sure that we put pressure and make sure that the Noordgedag scheme is supported both provincially and nationally to help the local municipality. I'm not going to talk too much on this slide. I just wanted to highlight that if you look at the status on the right-hand side, there's progress being made by various parties. And if you look at on the column on the left of that status side, you will see that the partners is usually the NMBM, the Department of Water Security, ourselves. So there is collaboration that's happening at various levels. This is what the Water Task Team subgroup does within the Metro. This is my second last slide, Mr. Chair. We just wanted to say that the water crisis in the Nelson Mandela Bay is not only the municipality's problem. It is all our own problem. That's why business is coming up, as well as we want civil society to be part of this together with government. We do know that for us to have water security, we require a coordinated approach so that we don't let the municipality handle this matter on their own. But also we do believe that we can work together to repair these leaks and identify appropriate issues, because even the boreholes that we have, it's not every borehole that needs to be done, because we must also understand that they have an effect in the future. So we mustn't just dig boreholes everywhere we can. The focus should be on conserving water and also making sure that we prepare emergency water supplies. We do have a broad-based water action group that we are establishing. It's going to be open to all because we need to bring the civil society on board. We do already have an email address for them. It's called bayh20@nmbbusinesschamber.co.za. This is an open action group that we want everybody to participate in. And that was my last slide, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity to engage at this webinar.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mona. What pleases most, more especially from where I'm sitting, is the honesty and the frankness of your analysis of the situation, and the contribution that you are making is very practical. You know, that is being made by the Business Chamber. It's practical plans that can be implemented. You know, we are not talking in the air, you know, so to say. And I'm sure Barry is aware, because there are other subcommittees that Mr. Martin does meet with the chamber to discuss this aspect. And I've also been made aware as well that the wheel is starting to move now. The team between the Business Chamber and the municipality that deal with this issue of water, we are starting to sing from the same hymn, if I can put it like that. So that is encouraging, and we are behind schedule, but what also pleases is that all presentations have been covered, and I'm sure the residents at home and the viewers can tell a story to an individual who was not watching here, what is happening with the metro and water, and how does this affect business, and what is business doing about it, the partnerships that are there. We have a number of questions, as I said at the beginning, Barry. Most of the questions were addressed to you, and you responded to some as you were presenting. I think maybe just to draw one question, Barry, from Peter, if I can put it like that. Peter is asking about what we are doing about illegal water distributors. I think you did talk to that, reflecting on borehole water that is being sold illegally. Maybe you'd want to say something in 30 seconds, Barry, on that. And there's another question that is coming from Bill that is talking to water leaks. Why did we have to wait up until there are 16,000, to fix them? Please, Barry, I'll give you another 30 seconds for that. And my assumption, on a lighter note, is that Ms. Mona and Mr. Lucas, the listeners and viewers are extremely happy about your presentations. I don't have any questions here. And they are as happy as I am, in actual fact, about the presentations that you naturally, we would expect questions that are directly for the municipality. Barry, touch based on those two, just to reflect in a minute.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, when you have limited resources and budget, you have to plan these things and get to a place. It's not a place where we really wanted to be for the accumulation of all of these leaks at one point in time. But we had to evaluate our internal resources, and where we could not catch up and stay abreast with it, we went to tender out the previous financial year already. And based on the strength of those tenders that we got, we could then appoint the contractors to assist us in catching up on the backlog. It's not a situation that we would like to be at any point in time, and we hope going forward we will able to manage that with the current resources that we've contracted in augmentation of our internal resources that we have. Then in terms of the illegal use of water, obviously the selling of any water, legislation specifically indicates that we as the Water Services Authority, we will provide a bill to people to sell water. If you need water, sell water illegally from your property, that is illegal, because the borehole that is on your property is for your domestic use. And if you want to use water for private use or for abstracting large volumes of water to run a business and the like, you need to register all boreholes with the municipality in any case. But you also need to register that water use as a lawful water use by the Department of Water and Sanitation. And there is a process on the national website where you go through, and they've made this electronic system also there. And so we suggest the illegal, we are aware of one or two illegal activities that we would like to strengthen up on our legislation, so that we know when we deal with these matters, we deal with them correctly with appropriate law enforcement. And we would also like to just discuss the final matters on this matter with the Department of Water and Sanitation, get their blessing on it, that we're approaching it in the right manner. And then we, with at least our internal Metro Police, will be dealing with this. There have been one or two activities already during the last month where our Metro Police has indicated they have issued fines and closed certain activities down that was contrary to our water restrictions bylaws, that water restrictions notices that has been published. So illegal water use, we suggest maybe use the app, because what the app does, you can send a photograph of the app and the incident there, and then we can actually act on that, or then just send an email to the WaterLeaks email address, and we will pick it up from that point of view. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Perry. Thank you very much to the panelists for that invaluable contribution. And I must also say a special thanks to you, Ms. Mona, from the Business Chamber. We know how busy are you as business persons to spare your hour with us. We are not taking it lightly. Thank you very much. And I'm sure the listeners and the viewers appreciate it as well. This is not the last session. I presume we'll be having more, talking more on progress that we've made about the plans that we've just shared with the residents. And just as we are closing, colleagues and the viewers, the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality is also running a competition here. Again, and thank, most importantly, our viewers and the readers of the Herald, our partners in this struggle of saving water. Thank you very much for tuning in. We know these are tough economic times. It's not easy to spare your data to watch us trying to unpack and then tell you about the solutions that we have. But you managed up until now. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated by the municipality. And thank you very much, colleagues. From what I understand from the colleagues that are assisting us with the back end, that there is a promotional video poster of the competition that they will be posting. And then that will be the end of today's session. Thank you very much to the panelists again.
Thank you.